Hey everyone, this is Colin Macy O'Toole from Below Deck Mediterranean, and you're listening to Jim and Florence on the Forum.
Hi everyone, this is Jim Jackson. Welcome to the Forum. I'm here with my amazing co-host, Florence Carmela. How are you, Florence?
I'm doing great, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. We have some amazing guests that will be coming up. We've been very excited, and we have a couple quick shout outs to do. First of all, we wanted to give a huge shout out to Kathy Ireland, our friend, who today is her birthday. And let's just say she's old enough to drink. Let's say that. She's a great friend online, and she's really helped and supported us. And we wish you a great, happy birthday, Kathy, for all you do. Also, want to give a huge shout out to all those. This show is dedicated to all those great people out there that work with our animals, our dogs, our cats, people in farms. Big shout out to my niece, who's a vet tech in Anaheim, and my sister Janine, who we all love our animals so much. So big shout outs. And thank you all for supporting our show. It just blows us away, all the messages that you give us. It's very humbling that you guys enjoy what we do. You tolerate me and you love Florence, so that's a good thing. But we are so appreciative of all that you do. And speaking of appreciation, I think there's a lot of people out there that are very happy and very proud of what work this lady has done. This great doctor, great veterinarian, and her family have done in the animal kingdom. So why don't you introduce our next guest?
Yes, I am so excited to have this wonderful woman with us here today. I have been binge watching her show. I am such a huge fan, so I'm very excited to say that we have Dr. Michelle Oakley from the hit TV show Yukon Vet on the Forum with us today. Hi, Michelle.
Hi. What a nice introduction. Thanks, guys.
It's small for what you have done for all people and all. You've been an inspiration to all families with that amazing show that you have with you and your family, all the work that you do for animals. And speaking of the work that you do, we wanted to start right off talking about the tragedy in Australia with the Australian fires. You were in the front line, and I just wanted to get your input and insight on just the devastation of this fire. And I read where up to 600 million to 1 billion animals have been killed in this fire. That is just unreal. And for some of you that say, well, how big is it? This fire is almost 6 times bigger than the Amazon fire that's still burning right now. And it is 6 times as big as the California fires. And we just had the worst fire season in our history. So this fire is just devastating. So Dr. Oakley, why don't you talk about your experiences and all the things that you saw?
Yeah, it was, those numbers, they're hard to wrap our minds around. They're not exaggerations. It was something else. I have to admit, I don't think I even understood the scale of it until I got over there, and we just drove for hours and hours and hours and hours, and you saw nothing but scorched earth. And that's hard, and it's overwhelmingly sad. They say it's the largest fires in recorded history ever anywhere, so it's all of those kind of numbers of billions of animals, the largest fires. To be honest, initially you can feel like paralyzed and what can I do? And there's nothing I'm going to be able to do. But other side of that is that kept coming to mind is there are animals there that will have survived and need help. So that was kind of a big theme for me while I was there is, not letting it, not getting overwhelmed by everything I was seeing and just looking for survivors. And so that was a big part of what we did. I went there with the help of so many people, never could have went otherwise because just, it was very costly to go and travel all over. But because people helped me out with the GoFundMe, I was able to bring myself, a couple burn experts, a couple like wildlife search and rescue experts. And we worked with all local people there to do search and rescue, to set up some wildlife triage clinics. We did a lot of good work, and I'm still reeling from it. I'm still processing everything, especially with everything else going on in the world. But it was worth going, and it's worth helping. You can't just give up.
Now, some of you, we are so appreciative. We've had Emmy Lentino, Emmeline, some of our musical friends and actor friends that are in Australia and New Zealand help and spread the word. And thank you all to have given to the GoFundMe account. We are going to release that again on Monday. We're going to do a big push all week, and we really, whatever you can give, and some of us are doing okay, some of us aren't, but if you're doing okay, it's so easy to give on GoFundMe, and this is an amazing thing. This isn't something that she's going to be drinking Cristal with her feet in the Yukon, water. This is something that she's using on supplies, travel, and saving animal lives.
Thanks for letting me share the story, actually, because that's been GoFundMe too. I'm going to be posting a lot more updates. It's like I posted a few to begin with and a couple in the middle, and then we were working like 16, 18-hour days. And we had a couple 20-hour days. And so it's like it's been impossible to keep it updated. But now I guess there's no good side to being, on the self-quarantine for 2 weeks, but I can at least get all the updates back out there. And we're just waiting for the chance to get back out and get back over there and help, because burn care takes months. It's not is just, right away and you treat it. We've got lots of animals in care. Even though we had to leave, we lined out with a lot of locals that are local vets who are fantastic and who are out there also. We were able to support them, and we're going to continue to do that with the GoFundMe, and we will go back and help ourselves. So it's been, it's a long process, but it's worth doing. A lot of the koalas and some of these endangered species we were working with, those individuals count. Like their genetics, their area population. We were pulling them out of areas where there was no food. And then the point is to keep them healthy, to treat their burns, and then put them back. But it's going to take months for their habitat to recover, if it does at all, in some areas. So there's a lot to this. It's not just treating animals for burns and then you're done in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to, before I get to my next question, I wanted to sneak in. How is the dog that you treated with, I believe it was fish skin on his burns on his face? Yeah. How's he doing?
He is Archer the Dragonslayer, we call him, because when we put that fish skin on him, he looked like a Dragonslayer, and I'd have to say that he did slay the fiery beast. He was, the backstory is Archer was tied to a house that burned to the ground. His family got out and wasn't home, actually came back, of course, but the firemen had come to rescue the people and him. They cut Archer loose, and he ran away on fire, and no one could catch him. And it was hours before they did get him. They found him down by the ocean, probably cooling himself. He was rushed across the pass. I was away. He was rushed to another clinic, which was a 7-hour drive. And the people did that. They almost turned back in a blizzard, but made it. He was stabilized for like a couple of days there. Then I got back and started his long-term treatment. And it was that's in our show in season 7, and it will actually have some of it in season 8, because like I said, burn care takes a while. It's not just one thing or another. And now, I guess I kind of gave away season 7, but he is doing well, like amazingly well. And you kind of have to see it though to believe it. When you see what Archer looked like, he had about 50% of his body burned. In vet school, we don't learn how to take care of those kinds of burns. It's generally put the animal out of its suffering. And we almost did that. But, the owner was like, well, we were kind of like, I'm sorry you lost everything, because their house burned to the ground. They lost absolutely everything, that was like a thing, except for Archer. And that's what they remind me of. They said, we haven't lost everything. Can you help us? And that still, to be honest, that still chokes me up. Like I still can't forget their face and what that was like, to be so torn as a vet, like to do no harm. I didn't want to, put him through any more pain. But I was really, really lucky to have a vet tech who reminded me, what about this person who was helping like bears in the California wildfires and using fish skin? I was like, oh my gosh, right. And so a few phone calls later, and I had Dr. Jamie Payton of UC Davis, who's an absolute angel. And, go to her website. It's Jamie Payton, UC Davis. I think it's called like an integrative medicine fund. She is incredible, and she's doing this burn research to look at how we can help animals. And fish skin is one of the main techniques. There are quite a few others, but fish skin is a great one. And you put this tilapia skin literally on the animal's burns, and it's like instant pain relief. There's something about it that also is anti-inflammatory. It also fights infections, and that's a really common cause of death in the first, a week or two with burns is infection, because your skin's all gone, and so that protects you from infection. And for whatever reason, the fish skin is also like antibacterial. So they're learning a lot about it. And anyway, long story short, she came and helped me put the fish skin on Archer, and he survived. And he's running around this winter. He was like pulling a sleigh and with his family at Christmas. And I see him probably once every 2 weeks, and he just looks better each time. And he's, he will always have some scars, but he doesn't know it. Like, he could care less. He's so happy, whipping around all the time. He's a very happy, high energy dog. So.
Well, that's great. Don't cry on us yet. We got a long show, so.
I know. It's up and down job, so I'm going to keep it together, guys. There's a lot of
You could cry. We're a pro-crying show, so you can cry anytime you want. Now, we wanted to also give a special shout out to your dad, Steve, I believe, who was an inspiration to you with animals. We wanted to really give him a big shout out because an inspiration to you. Because why don't you talk about your journey into this realm of being a veterinarian? Was it something that you always wanted to do? Was it just inbred with you with all your relationship with your dad? Explain that to us.
So I wanted to be a vet since as long as I knew what a vet was. So it was, one of, like many of you kids out there, people out there who want to be a vet. And, when you're little, there's, take that serious. Like, a lot of my colleagues were like that. And, it was something that I was very lucky to have my dad and my mom and my grandma and my brother actually really nurture that. We were a very tight family. My dad was a real softie, as my grandma was too, always feeding stray cats. I was always bringing in animals. We lived on a creek, but in a suburb in Indiana. So it was like, suburban wildlife kind of thing. And I was bringing in things that need to be rescued, little things that were hit by car. Neighbors would find, little orphan bunny rabbits if the mom got killed and bring it to me. It's like I started doing that from when I was, I can remember 7 or 8 years old. And, and my parents just supported that. Like, my dad was always supportive of that. And his uncle had a dairy farm that I spent a ton of time on. And, my uncle was always like, you were the only kid that, like, actually woke me up in time for milking. I'd be like right by his bed, at 4 o'clock in the morning. Can we go, Uncle Frank? Is it time? It's just, I loved it. So I was lucky to have a lot of different family members that just, were like, yeah, that's what she's going to do. And it just, was very supportive. And then a husband who, my husband Shane has just been, he's an amazing Yukon mountain man, and yet he's so supportive of all the, things I want to do, and our daughters. And he's just, I had 2 kids in vet school, and that's not exactly ideal. And he stayed home. He's a firefighter seasonally for wildfires. So, there's a link there too to the fires. And we were lucky that at that time his season was not covering a lot of the winter, so he could stay home during the school year. So, that becoming a vet was I had so many people supporting me, and I just really appreciate that. But it was definitely something from day one I knew I wanted to do. And the other side of it is that, even though I wasn't around a lot of different wildlife except for what was there in Indiana, I had TV and inspiring shows and inspiring women to watch. And like Nat Geo was a big part of that. So it's kind of thrilling now to be, getting emails from kids that say, I watched you on Nat Geo, wow, and I want to be a vet, and I want to do that. It's like, oh man, that means a lot, because I grew up watching Jane Goodall and, chimpanzee. I mean, that was my thing. Like, I never missed it. I was always watching. I watched her, some of her specials over and over. And it's like that, I was like, I'm going to do that. And I got to meet Jane Goodall. My mom, took me when I was 11 years old to Lincoln Park Zoo. She was doing a book signing, and I was like, told her about it. And she's like, we're going. And she just took me, and we watched it. I got to walk up and shake her hand and tell her I wanted to do what she did. And that those things are so important for kids to let them follow those dreams and see where they take them.
Now, speaking of your family, the show Yukon Vet, which, like I said, I have been binge watching. I'm so excited. Season 8 starts Saturday. I cannot wait. But your show is for families, but it's about family. It's a show that's perfect for all generations, all ages. And I was wondering, going back to the very beginning, how did that all start? How did you come about doing this on television, doing your life's work and bringing your family along and doing this for National Geo Wild?
It's definitely a show about our family work, and it's definitely a family show. We wouldn't have kept doing it if it wasn't that way. And again, I'm just so lucky that it was Nat Geo, and I honestly don't think I would have went with anybody else at the time because there was, a lot of question about reality TV, and this is more docu-reality, but there's not made up things, nothing scripted. Still, you have to be, I was very worried about what, how my clients and my friends and family and my own immediate family would look, or feel about being on TV. So that was huge. In fact, in the first season, I was so nervous and so worried. I think I lost like 15 pounds. I just couldn't eat.
Wow.
Like, I was so stressed. I know. And like by the end of the season, they're like, you need to eat, like, but it was also like trying to do the show. And then some people, the show was new, and they're, these are people that are not used to TV and media, and they were just like, I don't want to be on the show. And it's like, that's okay, but I'm the only vet, so I still have to do vet work. So I film the show for 10 to 12 hours, and then I do calls and vet work for another 3 to 4 hours of people who didn't want to be on the show. So a lot of people have changed and come around. They've seen that the episodes are not going to, they're honest. They're not, going to be sensational, and they're very family friendly. So fortunately that's cut back quite a bit. It evolved, I guess, because I started out, I graduated from vet school. I had been working as a wildlife technician actually for Yukon government before and during vet school. And then when I graduated, they had a lot of projects already, kind of like, let's do this and that. And so really within 6 months of graduating, I was working for a clinic to kind of get my basic skills down. But then I started working for Yukon government as a wildlife veterinarian and a wildlife biologist as well. I kind of had a dual job. So that went on for about 8 or 9 years. That was my job, was to be the wildlife vet and biologist for this large territory in Canada. But it was a ton of field work. It was amazing work with moose and bears and caribou and wolverine and lynx. It was an awesome job that way, but I have to admit I really miss like the clinical. It's not as clinical like day-to-day caring for patients, and I miss working with people, helping people with their animals, and I also miss my family. Like I couldn't have my kids out with me in these massively, at that age especially because they were younger, I couldn't, I was flying hours away and going by helicopter everywhere, and it's not practical. And so I just decided to take a step back, which was hard to do, to leave a really good government job with young kids, but it just wasn't where my heart was. And my husband supported me and said, do what you've got to do. And so I stepped back and started doing a mixed mobile practice to service a lot of the communities around here that don't have veterinarians. And I was still doing a lot of wildlife work on, contract for different parts of the world. I was actually doing work in Sri Lanka, doing work across Canada and Alaska for the wildlife side. But, like my bigger focus at that time was more the clinical practice. And then Nat Geo showed up. And at first I was like, I'm just too busy, and they were kind of like, do you want to do a show? And it was just more like one show. Do you want to do a special kind of thing? I was like, well, different people sent me the email that they were looking for someone, and they're like, you should do this. And it was just like, all I could do was keep my head above water at that point, and I was like, nah. And then about 6 months later, they asked again, and then it was like, okay, the reality of doing all this work in remote areas is it's not that high paying. It's definitely a labor of love, and it is difficult financially. So at that point, I was like, okay, we'll film for food. And, if you can kind of, help me out. And it's been a great relationship that way. Working with Nat Geo, it helps me be able to afford taking care of a lot of patients that I couldn't otherwise, thank goodness. And, it's helped me get equipment as well and provide a level of care and medicine for my patients that we could never afford in these remote areas. So that I'm just so thankful for that too. I guess if it's changed, if it's not reality in any way, it's maybe that way, is that they've helped where I could, I still have to work for this stuff, but I at least can get, things like x-ray and things like that where I can help my patients. That is, it's just so much easier to do a good job helping patients when you have that kind of technology. And it's technology that now we can take into the field, which is also incredible. I can ultrasound in the field. I can take it in the helicopter. I can, there's so much technology now that I can just take out in remote Yukon, Alaska bush and still help animals that way.
I think it's great too, because I'll be really honest. A lot of people have said, and I've complained too, about some of the, especially U.S. vets, and we don't want to throw them in the fire, but I think what I love about Dr. Oakley and other doctors is that they give a lot of money. They're not greedy. They're giving a lot of their time. They're giving a lot, and some of the profits that they get, they use to help the animals. So that's why I want to give someone like this is so special, and that's why I support her. Make sure that you give to all of her things, because this is someone that uses the money for good causes. And
Yes.
this is something that you don't see with all veterinarians. And I'm going to be very honest with you. So I'm really excited. Now, we talked about also your career. Are there any television vets that touched you? I know Johnny Carson and David Letterman had a lot of veterinarians that they were very much into, and a lot of researchers, animal researchers that became very popular. Were there any TV vets that you really liked?
You know, there weren't a lot of TV vets that I was watching growing up that I remember. I mean, Jack Hanna was one that I still love to watch.
Great,
I still
Jack
like
Hanna.
Fangirl over Jack Hanna. But you know, he's not a vet. He's the director of zoos, but he has like a lot of wildlife experience to that. But it was really more, I think, honestly, it was like Jane Goodall that I resonated with. It was a woman going out into the, you know, these remote areas, into countries to fight for, to understand, to learn about these animals, to protect them, and then fight for them. And I think that's just really resonated with me. And I may not be doing just strictly wildlife work in a lot of senses, but still about fighting for what you care about in your heart, for animals that can't speak up for themselves, and for finding ways, you know, when you're being told there's 1 billion animals dead in the Australian bushfires, it's like, I don't care. It's what about the thousands that are still alive and need help? And that, I think that's true for all of us, is watching, you know, seeing what's going on and not letting ourselves get paralyzed by what we see and overwhelmed, and not feeling like there's anything we can do. Like, there are things we can all do. And so I really hope that our show shares a little bit of that. I'm really excited about, so while I was in Australia, I was there, I guess Nat Geo ended up coming towards the end of when I was there for the last like kind of week. And they asked if I was, could they come and film some of it? And I said, well, if it's okay with the people I'm working with, who agreed. So they actually did cover a little bit of this. I know. So they're putting together a special to do. So I'm really thankful, because I was trying to take pictures and trying to document, and there's just no way. Like, with the hours and how we were working, it was impossible. And sent a very small crew, like I said, like towards the end of when we were there. And that crew was awesome in terms of, you know, just kind of fitting in with us, traveling with us. They got what they needed, and they were even volunteering and helping, which is so, I mean, that's just exactly how all the Nat Geo crews have been that I've worked with. Like, we have kind of one core crew that's with us for most of the years, and they've become like family, you know, like our sound guy, Rob, and, you know, our different DPs. We've had this guy, Dallas, and our different, you know, editors, Dana. It's just like these people, Amber, our main field director. It's like we've had so many of these people become part of our family, because they travel everywhere with us. And I've seen director of photography, he'll be like filming, and I'm talking to a client, and he's so invested. There's like a tear going down his cheek, you know, and I'm like, like, they're so into it. And when they put the camera down, they jump in and start helping, you know, and that's exactly how it was in Australia. And in fact, one of the people from our Australia crew, Annabelle, was so inspired that she's got her wildlife care license. She's working on it. And she's going back down to volunteer. Yeah, so it's really cool. Like, you know, a lot of the people that we work with are in it for the animals too. So that was pretty special.
Yeah, we also wanted something that really is bothering me. We're seeing a really rise in animal abuse, especially in the United States, especially with young people, and it's vile. We've had a lot of situations where I know a doctor who, I'm in the medical field. I had a respiratory care business and a cardiopulmonary lab, and we had a deal with a doctor, and I found out he abandoned a dog. So I went to his house and ripped up the contract. And I said, you could sue me, but I will never do business with you, because I was so incensed. And we've seen a lot of white collar workers get dogs as props. And why don't you kind of inspire people to get people, as the big thing says, don't shop, adopt. Talk about animal abuse a little bit, and just kind of what people get when they get an animal from a shelter or a SPCA or someone, because you don't get an animal, you get a friend.
Right. I would go one step beyond, and you get a family member, you know, so you have to think of it that way. It's a lifelong commitment for that animal. I mean, their whole life in your hands. And, you know, a lot of them, especially when you're adopting from different places, they've had a tough go. And so it's preparing for that, being patient with them as they adapt to a new friendly home. And yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen horrible, awful things, you know, But again, it's sort of working with people, finding ways to, get the animals into safer spaces. A lot of some of the wildlife places where we've gone to, I feel like have, most of the big ones are fantastic. But I've been really happy to work with some of the smaller places because they are trying to do their best, but really need some support. And I would encourage people to, to think about that too, is going about it in a way where you can get compliance and you can get buy-in. Is how can I help you? Can I help you with that? And I just remember like even my parents and grandma doing that, it's like, well, if you're not able to take care of it, can I help you with that? And with some of the wildlife places, I mean, that's what I'm getting at is it's not me going in there and saying, that's it. I'm not gonna help you. You need to be turned in, because sometimes those routes, they might be a good way, but they also may not work and everything shuts down. And so it's really about relationships, supporting the people, giving them good examples on how to improve the care. And that's really like my kind of core way to go at some of this. Certainly, eventually, and when people know better, and when, when there's different situations like you described, with the doctor who abandons their dog. I mean, that's different. But when you have people who are trying, or maybe who haven't, don't have the right setup, who got it themselves into a situation that they can't really help the animal as they'd like, it's more about than helping them out of it or helping them improve what they're doing. So that's definitely a part of what we do, and all the time with either wildlife or pets. Compliance
Sure.
as a veterinarian, what we call compliance, is critical to getting the good medicine for that animal into the animal, the treatment for the animal into the animal. When someone comes into my office and they have a dog, or I go to their home or their farm or whatever, I can talk till I'm blue in the face. And if we don't have a good relationship, and if they don't understand why I think it's important, if I don't get them to buy in, I'm never going to help an animal. So I think that's really important for all you kids and people who want to get into veterinary medicine or animal care. I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, I have to be a vet because I can't stand people, or I can't work with people. We all feel like that sometimes. Like, yeah. I'm not going to lie, I've been there, but you won't help animals that way. You do have to go through, even if you're a zoo vet, you have to work with the keepers who care for the animals, who are sort of like their family. You have to work with the people. I hate the term owner, but like the family, people who look after that dog or cat or bird or whatever. They're the ones who need to be the converted, and you have to make the compliance easy. That's another hard thing, is adapting treatments for animals. Are all fussy. They don't like the taste of that. They don't want to do that. And as a vet, you have to take that serious. That's not just whatever, just figure it out. You have to, work with them to find a way to get the treatment to the animal.
Now, you've dedicated your life to animals. You've done so much. I imagine you have some amazing stories of animal rescues and of people taking in animals and doing that type of thing. Can you share some of that with us? I mean, you must have seen some really heartbreaking things and then ended up having a great happy ending.
Yeah, there's so much hope and good news in what I've seen and in what you see on the show too. But that's really what this is about for me. Is there are some sad things. Yeah, it's a roller coaster, but it's 90% good and hope and people who are wanting to do good things. And like one that jumps to mind is when we were in Australia, we worked with a woman named Rosemary Austin, who runs the Possumwood. It's called Possumwood Wildlife Trust, I think. And so she rescues anything in this area in New South Wales. And Rosemary's actually a human physician, and so she works, in town several days a week, and then her home is dedicated to animal rescue. So that was pretty cool to see that. She has a lot of kangaroos, a lot of animals that I honestly didn't even hardly remember what they were. I was like reaching back to like zoology in my undergrad years and remember what the heck an echidna was, which is kind of like a spiny anteater, looks sort of like a down under version of a porcupine. But Rosemary was incredible. She was, taking in lots of orphaned kangaroos then, and she had the sanctuary going. Then when the fires hit, all of these animals came pouring in, where people were finding that were, burned feet that were running away. A lot of the moms, like the kangaroo moms, or even the koala moms or whatever, like wombats, their babies are in pouches. So the mom might not make it and might have been burned, but the baby actually was protected and survived, which is heartbreaking. Wow. But it's also awesome. And I know that's hard to hear, but there's hope there. There's a baby in a pouch that can be raised, and these animals actually do really well in captivity. and they actually do really well reverting back to a wild release, which is very lucky because not all species do that well that way. But with Rosemary, one particular animal that was just incredible was a male adult kangaroo. So his name was Kenny, and she actually rescued him as a joey. His mom was hit by a car. He had some trauma, but he was protected again in the pouch. So she raised him from a tiny velvety baby where he still should have been in a pouch. So she had to carry him around a little pillowcase pouch and give him bottles multiple times a day. And oh my God, those pinkies are so ugly. They're cute. Literally, they look like, I don't even know how to explain them. They look like they're not done cooking. Just in a pouch. but they're really cute. So she raised Kenny, I think it was 5 years ago. He was released. It takes almost a year to raise them, or a little bit longer sometimes in some animals, to release them back to a mob, which is a group of kangaroos in the wild. So he was released back to his mob in an area at another sanctuary where the animals were wild and could come and go, but there was someone keeping an eye on them, kind of thing. Then when the fires hit, I guess everyone probably heard about the tragedy with the fire, with the U.S. Firefighters that crashed. There were 3 firefighters that crashed, and
sure.
So that was actually where we were working. That's in an area called Kuma.
Man.
Yeah, so we were on that property doing search and rescue, and that's where Kenny's from, actually. So that plane was trying to put out the fires around this sanctuary, and so they, it's just the whole thing is awful, but you got to keep going, But anyway, Kenny was rescued from that fire. He was brought into care. A bunch of them came back to Rosemary, and she recognized him, and he recognized her. And I'm telling you, it was incredible. So years later, he's totally friendly with her. He's looking at us like he's going to tear us apart, because male kangaroos are very aggressive. They are very strong.
Yep.
They're 7 feet tall. They rise up, and they are taller than you, and they're sitting back on their tail so they can lift up their hind feet and slam you. They're dangerous. And so Kenny, we had to be super careful around Kenny because he was in a back area, being cared for, and his feet were burned, so we're bandaging him every 5 days or so. And we had to go in there to medicate the other animals. And so for a while, Kenny was okay with it, because he was just medicated and, you know what I mean, not doing. But the only one that could go in there with him really was Rosemary. And she would go up and scratch him, and he would put his head on her shoulder. It was amazing to see, actually. And so he would, put his arms around her, and we'd be like, oh my God, he's going to scratch her, because they will do that and then scratch. And he was just happy to have the love from her. And so through the whole time I was there, we got Kenny back so that, his burns were healing very nicely. He came after one of my technicians, and that was the last straw. Okay, he's feeling good enough to go. His burns are, 95% healed on his feet. He was getting around really well. So we released Kenny, and then for Rosemary to see him go, it was, again, kind of a bittersweet thing. But it was a pretty cool rescue story that she rescued him twice, and just everything around it. It's just kind of unbelievable coincidences and things, but it's how it is,
That's
just
amazing.
Good karma around animal rescue,
Oh, that is amazing. Those are amazing. And that's what kind of touched me, is when you see wild animals that are very badly injured and burned, and they're walking up to humans, which we normally would never do.
Oh, yeah.
Asking for help. And
right.
I'm thinking that is the point of desperation. And to see the relationships, and then to see them do well, it's just an amazing and inspiring story. And you've lived such a great life, and you're still young, so you got a lot more to do and to go. But it just must be exciting that you could do something on television that is wholesome, families could watch, is inspiring. It must really make you warm inside to know that your family is a part of this. Nat Geo, shout out to you, and you're just doing so much good. It just really must make you feel good.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been an awesome journey. I feel like, honestly, Australia kind of, pun intended, kind of lit a fire in me a bit to do more of this kind of thing, more of the animal rescue, disaster work. I'd, been trained the year before in burn care, so I felt I could offer that. But also having the Nat Geo platform and being able to raise money and then be very careful about how that money is then used. to help with animal rescue. So we've decided to start a nonprofit. We're actually going to roll the GoFundMe into a nonprofit for animal rescue. I know.
Wow.
So that's
awesome.
super exciting, and it's kind of always been building, but now it's there. So it's going to be tough. Like, it's already been difficult to be away, and my patients are left behind. And so I'm going to be working with other like interns and young vets in terms of trying to get coverage while I'm away. I mean, can't do everything yourself, so it's going to be, you know, definitely me out in the field for a while, but then finding ways. And the other thing is my oldest daughter, Sierra. I mean,
I was just going to say,
oh man, blew me away. Like, she's 22. She finished, you know, under her undergrad biology degree. She's trying to decide if she wants to apply to vet school. She's very interested in law and like ethics and things around how to, you know, take care of animals from a legal standpoint, which is so awesome, or environmental type law. So that would be an amazing path for her too, whatever her passion ends up being. So she's not going to apply to vet school, you know, now for sure, because she's not sure what she wants to do. So she spent 3 weeks in Australia with me helping out, and was trying to get back. She was trying to get back when the COVID hit, and she had to come reroute after a few days and come back home, unfortunately. So now we're all together in quarantine. But with her interest, it was just fantastic to see how she just stepped up. Like, these other rescuers were turning to her and taking her out, and we were split up on many different rescues where I was like, oh God, is she okay? And we come back and they're like, she was awesome. She was using the thermal camera and finding this and showing us this. And and I was like, that's my girl, you know. It was just awesome to hear. And then to see her in the wildlife triage clinics we set up, she was, you know, getting in IVs, getting people. And all of a sudden it actually came to me that we have, even though we're from a totally different country, totally different animals, totally different climate, our experience is really valid in these situations because we have to go and set up remote clinics all the time. And that is what a lot of this disaster medicine is about. It's going and finding local people, local supplies, organizing a wildlife triage clinic or a triage clinic for pets too, in these remote areas. And that does take a really different mindset than a regular clinic in a city and a different, you know. So, and all of a sudden I was like, oh wow, and that's kind of also what was sort of leading this nonprofit too. It's like, we know how to do this. We know how to organize local people and involve them to find, so they can keep it going when you go. You know, it's all about capacity building locally to keep that, you know, effort going. We know how to like get these supplies or make do with this or that. So that was a cool part about watching Sierra with her skills organize and set up clinics. And then when we left, they're like, how are we going to set up this next clinic without Sierra? And it was great to hear that they were like, you can go, Dr. Oakley, but leave Sierra. So that was cool.
Sierra, there's too many lawyers. Be a vet. We need you out there. So we need you. Shout out to Sierra. We need more vets like your mom. So dump the law stuff. But anyway,
such an amazing woman, such an amazing girl.
Yes, we are so happy. And like I said, Dr. Oakley, Michelle, we don't have guests. We have friends. We are going to promote you.
Thanks,
We're going to promote this cause. The millions of people that we are graciously allowed to touch every week. We are going to spread the word. We have some really loving celebrities that have a lot of animal love for them, and I know they would help out. So we're going to be spreading the word about the GoFundMe page and also her nonprofit, because I think that is an amazing idea, and we never, ever, ever want her to worry about money. So let's get in there and really, really tough it out. And some of us are, like I said, some people are doing pretty good. Dump a couple Starbucks trips and make sure that you give it to a cause like this for people that are really making a difference in the world and the animal kingdom. Thank you so much. We're very humbled that you'd be on our show, and we thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
No problem. Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for letting me share these stories and the work, and thanks everybody out there for supporting us. Like, we literally couldn't have done it without you. We had multiple support, you know, all the individuals that were giving $5, $20, like all these kids were raising money at birthday parties. I'm telling you that was so scary to me at first. I was like, oh my God, I have to do such good work. There was like this huge pressure, but it was also really inspiring and motivating for me. So I can't thank you all enough.
Oh, great. And we thank you all for listening to us. And again, please support her. Please follow her. You know how I am about endorsements. I'm not into corporations. I'm not into all this nonsense that people waste money. I'm into giving money to people, and so's Florence, and to people that make a difference and that we really believe this.
Yes,
When we endorse someone, you can trust it 100%. Thank you so much. We take care, everyone. Hang in there. Have fun indoors with your family, and have a great week.